Greetings and blessings, everyone. This is yours truly, Empress Chassie Warmington, aka All That Chaz, aka Lupus Slayer. As the last day of Black History Month comes to a conclusion, but never Black History will always be prevalent for our present and for our future. I just want to ask you guys a question. What is the true identity of African Americans? As we know, Africans were kidnapped and brought to different countries, from European countries to Pacific Islands and other regions of the world, uh, in North America particularly, and forced into slavery. And as a result of that, Africans were not allowed to speak their native language because the kidnappers did not understand what they were stating, and they thought that they were plotting to escape. And because they could not understand what they were stating, they were forced not to use their native language. They were also forced not to live in in their not natural culture or traditions or heritage. What they did is they imposed their culture and their likening and their traditions upon the kidnapped Africans, even from the dressing. That's why you see a lot of the pictures of melanated people that worked as slaves, dressed very European, because that was imposed upon them and forced. They were forced to, to dress as such. So, with that stated, what what are the true race or nationalities, rather, should we state, of African Americans? It's really important for melanated people who are considered African Americans to learn their true roots and their heritage. Um, know where your roots come from. It's nothing wrong with that. See, what is so sad that I see a lot. I know I got it myself, and I even get it from a lot of people in my own family, my blood family. They get upset at me because I embrace my culture, I embrace my heritage. Anything about it is like, you guys know that we, our ancestors, many of them were kidnapped and forced into slavery. They were brought to the United States of America and to the Caribbean and forced into slavery. So why would you get upset at me for wanting to embrace it? Because I was raised up in the culture, because I was raised up in the tradition. So it doesn't supposed to matter. I'm supposed to just accept the westernized and colonized um, lifestyle and theories and ideas and logic and pretty much whatever it is that they want to impose upon me, because they feel entitled to do that. No, I'm not going to do. I don't have to accept it. I can embrace, because I do remember my great grandmother. I remember my great grandmother being a Zulu. She's KwaZulu Indian, and she spoke. Her English was not good, and I didn't know at the time that she was speaking Zulu. She was just speaking her native language. Um, and so, why should I deny my culture, my true roots, and my true culture, just because I it was a falsified culture and a falsified identity was imposed and forced upon my ancestors? I don't have to. I don't have to, as they say, get with the program, or, oh, it is what it is. That's just the way it is. You might well deal with it. No, I don't have to deal with it. And that's wrong with a lot of melanin people. Melanin people don't like to fight when it comes to things like that. They'll fight each other over stupid stuff. And I know you guys see it. You see the posts on Instagram. You'll have people that don't like the way someone don't like a certain person's comment, and they'll go up under that person's comment and want to try to attack their character and argue with them and degrade them and berate them for no reason. You don't even know this person. This person haven't done anything to you, but you'll have people that would go out their way to argue with people that they don't even know, but then they'll get mad at you for and they'll get mad at you for wanting to embrace your culture. I'm like, you need to learn your true identity because I'm sorry, African American is not your true identity when you are a melanin person. You got to understand where your genealogy comes from, where your roots come from, and don't be ashamed to embrace it. Don't be ashamed to welcome it. And we have been taught for so many years, generation after generation. I have seen it because it's happened in my family and it's happened in many families of people that I grew up with or went to school with, where their families would get upset at them for asking questions. Um, about where they're from and about like say for instance like my great grandparents on my mom and that side are both deceased. So if I remember, I'm fortunate that I knew who my great grandmother was. Unfortunately, I never met my great granddad nor met my great grandparents on my biological father's side of the family. I never met them, but through DNA and through um, genealogy and also through photos, I learned who they were and I understand my culture, my background. I know my roots and I embrace it to the fullest, even though other people in my family may not embrace it and they may not want to accept it. They are custom and they're 100% fine with being Americanized. And that's fine if that's what they want to do. I don't dog them or criticize them for it, but they criticize me. I get a lot of criticism for wanting to and actually embracing my true identity and my true roots. And I don't know why melanin people are so afraid of that. Like, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid to find out that you're from a legacy of kings and queens? Are you afraid you'll find out that you're from royalty? What is it that you're afraid of? I don't get it. But because we have had our ancestors, many of us, forced into slavery, um, and forced to adopt and adapt to the European westernized ways, um, and ideas and preferences, because that's what it really is, imposing their preferences upon our ancestors. Melanin, a lot of melanin people, they have become comfortable and content with it. They're just like, okay, this is what I am. I'm African American, and I'm going to accept it. But that was imposed upon you because see, remember, out of all groups of people that's in this world that lives in America and that's considered a United States citizen, melanin people are the only group of people that has had the race identity change 4 different times. First, it was the N word, the derogative N word. Then it was changed to Negroes. Then it was changed to Black Americans. Now it's changed to African Americans. That in itself lets you know that the ones who are not the ones who only created these false identities upon us, but who also continues on that legacy for their forefathers, don't even know what our true identities are. And many of us don't even know what our true identities are. We don't know our roots. We don't know our heritage. We don't know our lineage. We don't know the lineage we're from. We don't know any of those things. And many are afraid to find out because they're just want to be like, I'm black and I'm proud. Oh, I'm black and I'm proud. Ugh. I'm glad you black and you proud, but you need to know where your lineage is from too. You need to understand where your roots come from because it can explain a lot of things, even from health conditions that you may obtain, even from maybe your style or the way you think. Because I know for me, when I was a little girl, I used to be told, which I do, when I was little, I used to be told I had a speech impediment problem, not realizing at the time that I had a dialect because I never really knew what a dialect was. We really didn't have too many foreign people in my school. We had a couple of Hispanics and a couple of Asians, and they had, an accent. That's what we called it then, accents. But I never heard the word dialects until I was like in high school. To be honest with you, never heard the word dang on freaking dialects. So I was getting being introduced to different things as I was growing up, and so with that, I didn't understand why the teachers used to say that I had a speech impediment problem and I'm dyslexia. So I would get books and I read from the back to the front or from the middle. I open from the middle and I read from the front to the back or something. So they call that dyslexia. So I guess I have dyslexia. Um, you know, but I was. They said that so that because of that they put me in the special ed because of the way I talk. That's they're like she shouldn't talk like that. She's from the South. Where were y'all born? Oh, y'all was okay. She was born in Atlanta, Georgia. So why she talk like that? Why she talking like she's British or like she's foreign? Why she talking like that? So because the teachers were so ignorant and stupid, they thought I had a speech impairment problem and put me in special ed. But what was like weird and strange about it, I was not only person that I can recall being around that had any kind of dialect or accent was my great grandmother because she had it very strong, extremely thick, very strong, and I obviously picked it up from her because I loved her. You know, I'm her favorite great granddaughter, and I spent a lot of time with her growing up. So that's the I don't know if that was why or if it was just embedded in me through birth. I don't know. It's amazing how people say, "Oh well, you know, you shouldn't. You can if you're a little baby, then you adapt to what is around you and what you do." Well, if that's and the dialects and stuff like that, your surrounding. Well, if that's the case, then why dogs don't talk? Can't just have conversations? Why monkeys can't just have conversations with us? Those who are, as they say, domesticized or domestic pets, why they don't just have a dialect like us do? Even parakeets that can speak and talk, they still chirp like birds and still have their same dialects of a bird, even though they are they know how to speak English or speak, words, pronunciate words. So I don't know. It's just maybe that's just the way I think and the way I see it. Some people may see it differently, and to each his or her own. Everybody's tied to their own opinion and their point of views, but that's just the way I see it to me. So for them to try to say that it was something wrong with me because I had a dialect as a child, it's just weird and crazy and stupid to me. It's pure ignorance. But anyway, so I don't. Some people say you can't be born with an accent. You're not born this way or that way. But I beg the difference because even not even just with that, but even my style, I always just had a very what people would consider culturally style. Um, I would always want to do the raps and do the scarring and the scarves and do the prints. And the prints that I was always seemed to be more attracted to were very asymmetrical and what is considered African prints. I was always attracted to that naturally. Um, and even just the way I like to cook, I was raised on soul food because my grandparents were enslaved, even though slavery had been abolished in 1865. There were still states like Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, that's Florida, certain parts of Florida, and even certain parts of Georgia that still allowed people have to enslave melanin people. They still allow white people to enslave melanin people. And they didn't do anything about it. And what could you do about it? Because the law of the land at the time, those who implemented and enforced the law of the land were white supremacy. So what could you do? Um, you really couldn't break free from that. So my mom and my grandparents were still in that slavery arena to the point where my mom and grandparents, my mom parents that is, used to live on the plantation of the person who enslaved them. But it wasn't like torture where they beat them and cuss them out and treat them like dogs or whatever, but it was still inhumane because they were forced to clean and forced to cook and forced to go to the fields and pick. Um, I think they were picking peanuts and cotton and potatoes in the field and corn. So they were still forced to do labor and not get paid for it. So to me, that's still slavery. But I grew up understanding, having some sense of understanding of my culture, my background, primarily on my mother's side, my biological mom's side. I did not know who my biological father was growing up. I really did not know who this man was because in the community that I grew up in, everybody was an uncle, everybody was a dad, everybody was an auntie or grandma, you know. So I really didn't know who was who. Only thing I knew is whoever was in my household as mom and as dad is mom and dad. I didn't understand the stepmom and the stepdad thing. Even though I heard it, I still didn't understand what it was and why. Why some if they could. I remember asking. Nobody could explain it to me. Nobody explained it to me what it was. They would just be like, "That's your dad. That's all that matters." And so that just my dad that I know that raised me till he died. That's who I knew as my dad. So when I discovered who my biological dad was, and the way I discovered it was just shocking. It was like a culture shock for me. And it's important and another reason it's important to know your lineage and your roots because remember the kidnappers, they forced our ancestors to breed. They made them breed because that's what they called them. They called them breeders. They had groups of women that was very fertile, and they called them breeders. And they forced these women to constantly get pregnant and have children. Like once they had one baby, they were being impregnated, forced to be impregnated um, by to have another child. And the thing about it, it didn't matter who it was. It didn't matter what melanin man impregnated her. It could have been one of her older sons. It could have been her uncle. It could have been her own dad or granddad. It could have been one of the kidnappers' son or the kidnapper him or himself. It didn't matter as long as they were breeding and having babies. So imagine you may and we've seen it happen. It's even happened to me where I met someone who I was getting ready to date, and I asked them about their background, and I discovered that we were cousins. I was like, we can't do this. And it's not like we were like fifth, sixth cousins. No, we were like second cousins because the person looked it too much like one of my first cousins. And I was like, you look a lot like one of my first cousins. And I mentioned the name and the family and came to find out they are first cousins. My first cousin is their first cousin. That makes that person my second cousin, actually, not my third cousin, but my second cousin. I was like, I'm so glad that we didn't just do anything and just jump in the sack. I'm so glad we had a conversation. That's why you don't just hop into bed with people. You got to have conversations because you will find out, discover things that you would have never that after the fact is too late. So it's important for us to understand our roots so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where we become impregnated by relatives or cousins. And that's why I have a problem with people who are reckless with their anatomy um, when they just go out here and create babies. Male and females alike. You got females just letting any man run up in her and install her, as Judge Lynn Toller says, install her with a child, and she just popping these children out, and she don't even know who the father is because she's just that promiscuous and just allowing herself to let herself go to that extent that she just having babies by random guys. And who's to say that he has children that's in the same age group, and they may even go to the same end up going to the same school together or same high school together one day, not knowing that they're siblings, and get in a relationship and even get married. Now you got two siblings, biological siblings, blood siblings, married to each other and not knowing that they are siblings until they get ready to have the baby and they do the DNA test and then they find out that they're brothers and sisters and they've had a child. So now their child is their sibling as well. It's just it's so deep. It goes so deep. That's why we have to make sure that we keep up with our heritage and with our roots. Learn it. Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. And when you find out, reach out to those tribes. If you find out that you're from an African tribe, reach out to the tribes. Let them know. Look, I'm your cousin. I'm your relative. I found out, discovered that we share the same bloodline. That's, my great grandmother, my great grandfather is from this tribe, is of this tribe. Don't be afraid to do that. So because they really don't have the advantage being in certain places where they can do have certain gen, gen, genealogy tests is done, genetic test is done where they can find out their roots here in America. But we can always do our genealogy and find out our roots in Africa. Hold on, guys. I'm going to play this commercial and I'll be right back. And don't go nowhere. I ain't playing with y'all. Y'all better not go nowhere because I'm not finished done running my mouth. And I'm sorry. I got to look through it, but I probably should. I'm going to find it in just a little bit. Did I pass it? Did Oh no, I didn't pass it. But I'm going to be right back. I promise you I will. So I'll stay in here. I'm sorry. My fingernail all in the camera like that? All right, thanks guys. I'm back. But yeah, don't be afraid to embrace your genealogy and learn, your roots and stuff because it's so important to know that. Not only that, but it's just the principle of it. We know that our ancestors were stripped of their true identities, even the ones that were already here in North America and that were native Indians. They were stripped of their identity. They were stripped of their land, of their legacy, of their lineage, of their property, and the westernizers that were Spaniards that came over here and set camp up and created laws and stuff to and impose laws upon their kidnapped victims, um, and force them into citizenship, which really at that time back then they did not even allow you to have citizenship. You were just a slave. Where so if they got finished with you or you got too old where you were no longer or you were no longer used to them, like if you got too sick or something, they would just kill you. And they didn't even have a burial ground, a way to bury you. They didn't care to bury you. They just threw you in a pit or whatever. They didn't mark your grave or nothing. That's the kind of treatment that our ancestors received from these evil bastards. That's why I have a big problem with the United States of America and European countries and any nation or country that will continue carrying that legacy, that negative legacy, and that negative um, wickedness and evilness, and not even just carry it, but embrace it and still to date impose it upon melanin people. But this is another reason why they would do that, because they know that they have kidnapped so many people, their ancestors, the races that is, their ancestors have kidnapped so many people from Africa and forced them into slavery on ships. I mean, like droves of them, particularly the one that's called De Jesus. And for those who know what De Jesus means, it means that's where they get the word Jesus. They know how to pronounce the word. That was the ship for that Christopher Columbus was lit from Queen Elizabeth, the original first Queen Elizabeth. She's the one with her evil ass gave them um, the vessel, as they call it, to go to Africa and kidnap a lot of Africans and force them into slavery. So that's why, like, people are wanting to go and spend all this money in Europe and stuff like that. Certain parts of Europe, I'm just not. I don't care to go to. It's just like Central Park. A lot of people are all caught up on Central Park. Don't you know Central Park was built, excuse me, upon a whole city? They sit up there and they push these people, poor melanin people and Hispanic people, out of their and a few Asians. They forced them out of their homes and turned it into Central Park. That's why I don't even care to go to no Central Park. I don't care to go to Staten Island. I don't care to go to places like that. I'm not a big fan of Savannah. Yes, Savannah is cute and nice and all that stuff, but I don't like to patronize places that I know that enslaved my ancestors and other melanin people's ancestors, and they're turned it into an attraction or into a place where they could capitalize off of and make money off of, and not take those proceeds that they are receiving and giving it to the descendants of those who were enslaved in their cities in those areas. So I don't support them and sponsor them or be a patron of their businesses or anything on those strips. I'm not going to spend my money if I know. I Even here in the state of Georgia, like Atlanta, Georgia, I don't really go to Atlanta, Georgia to shop. For what? That's I don't want to go to Atlanta, Georgia, and really shop because it used to be what is that, Marthaville, and then the previous governor, he named it, back during that time, he named it after his daughter, and then he changed it to Atlantic Station Railway, because that's where the Underground Railroad for Atlanta, Underground Railroad, Underground Atlanta. I mean, that's where it get its name from. It was derived from the Atlantic Station Railways, and then they turned it to the city of Atlanta. They just called it Atlanta. So I remember all of these things, and I really have a problem with how they are how they allowed a lot of westernized business owners and Caucasians to come into Atlanta and gentrify Atlanta and not even reach out or offer any melanin property management businesses or contractors um, to be on any of those projects and to participate in the gentrification of Atlanta. So I don't have any desire to live in Atlanta at all. I would not go to Atlanta and patronize hardly any of the business. I would go there only if I just have no other option. But if there's any other options, I'm not going to really go to Atlanta and spend money. I rarely go to Atlanta and spend money because I have a better understanding of what I'm supporting and how unfair it is. So if Atlanta was to take most of the proceeds that they get and they would invest them into melanin owned businesses, I mean, like, seriously, really truthfully invest in melanin owned businesses without the red tape and without giving them a hard time and without all of these unnecessary requirements, and even give major breaks, especially property tax breaks and credits to melanin people when they buy homes or get businesses that buy property in Atlanta, then yeah, I was supportive. But until they do that, I'm not going to be going to Atlanta hardly ever and supporting anything in Atlanta. I don't even like events that I would have, I wouldn't have them in Atlanta. I don't even like having events in Stone Mountain either because I understand Stone Mountain was the headquarters for the KKK. I do not go and patron the Stone Mountain Park at all. I do not pay. I've never paid that I can remember since I was a little girl because you know you go on field trips and stuff. But as far as being an adult, I've never been to Stone Mountain and paid my money to go into Stone Mountain. I don't care to because I understand when I see that mountain, all I see are melanated people being thrown off that mountain to their death by racists. And there's a lot of dead bodies underneath Stone Mountain. That's why they got that man made lake at Stone Mountain to hide all those bodies. And they built attractions and flower beds and botanical gardens and all of this stuff they built up on the bodies of of innocent people that they threw off the mountain just because of the color of their skin. So no, I don't care to go give them any of my money. I won't go give them any of my money. Stone Mountain can kiss my ass. I'm not giving them none of my money. Fuck them. Excuse my language, but that's just the way I feel about them. So it's important for us as melanin people to understand and never forget our history. Don't forget what our ancestors went through. Don't forget that's when you stain yourself, when you allow them to stain you, rather, should we state, with a falsified identity, all you're doing is supporting their narrative and you're accepting their narratives. I'm not saying be ashamed of your skin color. Hell no. Look at my natural hair. I mean, I wear hair pieces sometimes, but you guys will see a majority of my videos. I'm looking rough, okay? I got head scarves. I got gowns with holes in them. I'm rocking my natural hair for the most part. I rarely wear hair pieces. I like to change up and stuff like that and wear different hairstyles and hair colors. I like to do stuff like that. So that's the only reason you would see me do it. And if I have, like, if one of my nieces or one of my real close dear friends get a hair business or whatever and they make like lace fronts and stuff and they want me to help them promote it, I wear it for that reason. But as far as me going in stores and just buying them, no, I'm not gonna do that. No, I don't buy them habitually like that because I don't even wear them like that. So no, I don't. I just certain I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm uptight. Maybe I don't know. I just won't do it. I guess I guess I just have too much conviction in my heart to just embrace certain things because there are certain things that we can we can make a decision and to not support, and there are some things we can't because it's a part of it's our it provides necessities for us, and so there's no other outlet for it that is melanin owned and operated. So sometimes you have to go where you don't want to go and patron businesses that you don't want to patron because you are not able to get those same kind of services or excuse me get those same things at melanin owned melanin operated businesses or manufacturers or whatever because they're non-existing, like airports here in America, airlines rather should I state. There's not no melanin owned airlines here in the United States of America. So if I need to fly somewhere, I would have to use one of their airlines. There's no melanin owned major melanin owned car rentals. I mean, there's some that franchise. They are franchise ones, by by melanin people, but being melanin owned and operated. Um, car rental services, we don't have it, so I would have to patronize one of those if I needed to rent a car. So that's all I'm saying. Like if it's something that I can't get around, and I would have to rely on or would have to use this service, then that's what I would do. But other than that, if I can go around, me will, you know, because I don't want to put a lot of mileage on my own car. If I have to drive long distance or whatever, I would want to run up miles on my car instead of depreciate the value of it even greater when as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's depreciated. It's already dropped down by depreciation, 15% depreciation as soon as you drive the car off the lot. So I'm just saying, like things like that, and then there may be black owned, melanin owned car dealerships, but the cars that are on those car lots are not owned by or by manufacturers and cars that are owned and operated by melanin people. Just because we have melanin engineers that help design them, like the Chrysler 300 and the Charger, doesn't mean that we own them. We don't own Dodge. We don't own GMC. We may franchise and own some of their dealerships, but we don't own the manufacturer. We are not the manufacturers and the owners of the manufacturers of those type of vehicles in those car brands. So some things we have to support because we don't have our own. Um, and that's why, like for me, with having lost identity for a lot of melanin people, is it has been imposed and forced upon melanin people, and as a result of that, we have become unintentionally and involuntarily subjected to depend on resources and on identities that we did not create and that we did not volunteer to be a part of. Um, and it would not change because melanin people have come from so many different eras and backgrounds of Africa, even Caribbeans. They are descendants of Africans. Some are descendants of Native Americans in North America as well that moved to the Caribbean and or that conceived children with Africans and moved to the Caribbean, or that was taken to the Caribbean by um, kidnappers who enslaved them. So I mean, we'll say though, you notice like Jamaica, they're Jamaicans, not Nigerian Jamaicans, not Ghana Jamaicans. They're just Jamaicans. Even with Haitians, with Bajans, with Virgin Islands. I mean, and it goes on Antiguans. They're called what they are for because of that nation, that island. But it's never referred to their roots, where they are from, their heritage. Even though we will say with the Caribbeans, they have been able to really more so embrace and keep a lot of their culture as opposed to here in North America. Um, Even though a lot of them still to date doesn't know and realize that they are descendants of Africans and or Native American Indians here from the United States, indigenous people. Um, I put it to you this way: a lot of people don't even realize that Jamaica and a lot of the Caribbean islands had a lot of Asians and Hispanics already on them. That's why you had Hispanics, Spaniards, um, enslaved that had slaves as well, in the Caribbean. That's why I put it to you this way: some Caribbean islands, when you buy a house, the house automatically comes with, like, especially like you buy a big house, like a mansion, you automatically have a complete server staff. You have service staff. You have butlers. You will have housekeepers. You will have drivers. You will have chefs. They come with the house in certain Caribbean islands, just like in certain regions of Africa. They automatically comes. It comes with the purchase of your home, because that's the way it had been set up and structured. So that's why I say the Caribbeans in Africa and Africans, born and raised Africans, they have a lot of the same type of culture. Even like with me, with the Zulu um, genealogy, with my Zulu roots, right? We cook goat, but they keep the skin on the goat in Zulu. But in the islands, um, like Jamaica, Barbados, and Antigua, places like that, they take the skin out the goat. But guess what? On my dad's side, we're part Haitian. And Haitians and Africans have more in common than any, because a lot of Africans, depending on the region, they speak French. In Haiti, I mean, in Haiti, they speak French too, but they also speak what they call Haitian Creole, which is a combination of Portuguese, French, broken English, and broken Spanish. That's what Portuguese, broken Portuguese. They speak a combination of those languages. Even with Guyana, with me being part Guyanese on my mom's side, they speak the same lingo. For a lot of times, they just don't have the the Creoleness, what is considered Creole. They don't have that part of it. But there's also the British Guyana. See, there's a South American Guyana that is Spanish, and then there's one that is British. There's a British Guyana. I bet you guys didn't know that. But see, that's why it's important for you to know your roots, to understand where you come from, understand your genealogy, because you'll be surprised that even though a lot of things seem different, we have a lot of similarities. That's why we just love music. People love music, period. But why do melanated people particularly, or when we hear drums and we hear bass, we get hot. We get so crunk. Why do you think that? That's just naturally in us, because of the drums from our ancestors. It's in us, it's in our spirit. Even with religion, they took the westernizers, when they realized how we responded to the spirituality of the hand touching, laying the hands on, and the oils and the water, which they call holy water now in religion. But if you look at a lot of the cultures and then you look at religion, you'll realize that a lot of religions has mimicked a lot of the tribal cultures of Africans and of people of Guyana and of certain parts of South America, period. They have embodied it and they have pretty much tainted it to make money and capitalize off of it. If you don't believe me, just study it yourself. See, stuff like this isn't something that you get knowledge and gain knowledge of overnight. It is consistent years of research and studies, and that's what I have done. Because I have been studying this stuff for over 2.5 decades, and I've been researching, and I noticed that, and I was just like, wow. And it fascinates me because I start finding out things and discovering things, and the more I discover, the more I find out. It just pushes me. I know for me, it inspires me to want to learn more and to dig more, to dig deeper. And as I dig deeper and as I do my own studies, my own research, I even rely on my own cultures and my own roots. It just bring me to so much reality, gives me so much clarity. That's why um, we would never. It would be hard. I won't say never, but it would be hard for the United States of America to see melanin people other than African Americans, even though many are indigenous. They're from Native American Indians. They would still call them African Americans because a lot of the indigenous Indians, even though they had Africans as slaves as well, they start procreating and marrying Africans. And that's when the westernizers got pissed off at them and started taking their land, killing them, and or forcing the native Indians to marry them so that they could take over their land and take over their livestock and acres of land. And then remember, former President Abraham Lincoln signed a bill to give westernizers 500 million acres of land for free. Just gave them land and let them take land from the indigenous people. That's why when people always trying to act like Abraham Lincoln is such a good person because of the bill for the slavery and the votes, honey, I don't care about none of that. I don't care about none of that because he may have done that, but he didn't liberate. He didn't liberate melanin people, kidnap melanin people. He didn't liberate them because if he really liberated them, he would have gave them the 500 million acres of land free, not to and wouldn't allow white people and westernizers and racists to take it away from and steal it from them, whether they try to create laws and stuff to trick them out of the land, which they did do to a lot of melanin people when they were able to buy land. They did manipulate the law to fit their narrative and stole a lot of land from them. But he didn't do that. So I don't give this man credit for nothing. I don't know why people praising Abraham Lincoln. Stop praising him. He is a contributor. He's a contributor. I'm not going to give him no kind of acknowledgement for nothing good or whatever because it's just like if I see you hungry and I sit there and I eat as much of it of the food that I want and then give you the leftover. I'm not doing you no service and no justice because suppose I eat all of the food. That's what Abraham Lincoln did. He gave liberty, but guess what? He sat there and ate all the food. He let all of the excuse me, racists and westerners to eat all the food. Give them all the land. Give them a great advantage, economical financial advantage over as he was a contributor to it. He wasn't the only one, but I'm saying as a U.S. president, he gave them a lot of advantage, and it was a great disadvantage for us as melanin people, and it still affects us to date. So I don't give him no damn credit. The hell with him too. But that's why we got to study and research because we find out that in a lot of ways that it seems like we're different, we are a lot alike in so many ways. Even just from the food, don't you know they cook a lot of collard greens? That's part of Kwanzaa. That's part of a natural meal. Even though I know that Kwanzaa was a holiday that was orchestrated back in the 70s, but still the food. If you look at the food that is cooked for Kwanzaa, it's a lot of the same foods that they have in Africa and in the Caribbean, the peas, the rice, the collard greens, the stewed chicken, the stewed fish. You know, a lot of that, the corn for the native, like the dry corn, even in certain parts of Africa, um, in those tribes where they eat the dry corn, they don't boil their corn, they just eat them. They roast it or they just eat it right off the stalk. So I'm just saying, like even a lot of the Hispanic has the same kind of culture, even with the way they cook their food. Even though they may cook it in a more spicy way, but They use a lot of the red sauce. Where do you think they got the red sauce from? That culture. They got it from the Africans. Even with a lot of Italians and Spaniard countries that use a lot of tomatoes, a lot of tomato sauces that came culturally from Africa. So I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of things that people don't realize that other cultures and other nationality and groups of people do, because it was something that they embraced, or that, as they call cultural vultures, adapted, adopted, or tried to steal or mimic from a lot of African tribes. And that's just a realization of it. Um, but yeah, just learn your roots. Even a lot of Asians, which I can't honestly say that they don't want to learn, because it's obvious. You see a lot of the Indian tribes of Africa, and you see a lot of the Indian tribes of a lot of Asian countries, especially Malaysia, Indonesia, even Japan, even China. They have a lot of the same and similar um, traditions. Even the dressing of the tribes, the way they dress is very similar. And there's a lot of melanin Asians, but you don't really see them. And I'm talking about natives, not mixed African or whatever. When you go back and you see the map, the African map before it was segregated and broken up, a lot of Asian countries were already connected to it, and it became divided through the waters, and also through um, colonizing, and also through um, religion, politics, divided a lot of the nations, and made them separate. That's why a lot of times, if you notice, a lot of Moroccans, they would never say Africa. They would just only say Morocco, because a lot of Moroccans do not like to associate themselves with Africa, because from what I've seen, I've never met a Moroccan that would say, "Oh, Morocco is part of Africa." I don't know. I think it's like a east side of Africa, but they don't, or north, or is it north? But they don't like to acknowledge that word, because the word Africa has been maliciously attacked and stained by westernizers for so long that it makes it look deplorable to even acknowledge that part, to even say that you're African. Even India, a lot of parts of India, whether they like it or not, for those Indians who are racist, honey, you are African. You may not want to accept that, because you're separate from Africa and you guys are your own entity now in nation. Doesn't mean that you're still not African. That's why you look a lot like them, and you can't stand it. For those that are racist, y'all can't stand the fact that you are from that genealogy and from that bloodline. It angers you. But African Americans, every melanin person in America is not African, even though that's where the roots start. What about the ones that are native, where their entire genealogy starts from Native Americans? That's here, but that was forced. Their Native American ancestors was forced to adapt to European and westernized ways and concepts and lifestyle, where they were stripped even of their identities as well, and forced to take on this false identity. And they were called African Americans instead of labeling them as Native Indians, because they didn't want to have to give them their land, or just to be mean and malicious. So even the word black, remember, the word black wasn't given to us as anything positive. Yes, we've taken it and we've made it into something positive, but the core of that word still, even when racists refer to us as black, notice the sting that they put on it, which they stated with such hatred, with such anger. You know why? Because the word black was never imposed upon us in anything positive. Remember, the word black was imposed us to call us the N word, the derogative N word, to call us uneducated, ignorant, stupid, dumb, nasty, useless, trash, deplorable, you know, ignorant. It was labeled to us, our our ancestors and us, for those reasons. You can never forget that. That's why, for me, that's the only problem I have with that word. Because in this country, in this nation, that word still has a negative effect, and it still is looked upon by racists who are in these political offices and positions that use that word in the derogatory term that it was created for in the first place. So yeah, it bothers me a lot. And yes, for me, I have a big problem with that word. And that is the only reason why. Because like I said, I'm nowhere near ashamed of my skin color. I absolutely love being enriched melanin. Being what, if people want to say I'm black, I love being black. Love it. Wouldn't trade my skin for nothing or my hair. Love it. Absolutely love it. I don't even want to get lighter. If I see any product, I don't hardly use any other products on my face anyway. But if I was the type that used products, and if I knew that it would lighten my skin, I wouldn't even use it because I don't want to get lighter. I like my skin the color it is. I love this complexion. I don't want to get lighter for it. If I got a little darker, that'd be fine too. Because I love my chocolate skin. Love it. Wouldn't trade it for nothing. But we got to learn our genealogy and think about, if the government had to, if we proposed to the government to allow us to be called melanin, would they honor and respect it? They probably wouldn't, because guess what? They will have to label it. They will have to be like, well, are you melanin Native American? They will have to give us those options rather, and we should be able to check all that apply. They will have to list melanin North American, melanin European, melanin Caribbean, melanin African, excuse me, melanin Spaniard. They will have to itemize it because they have spread us out so much. Our ancestors, they spread them out so much across the globe that they can't even really just itemize us as one group. But for their convenience, and remember, it's all about what they want, what they impose us. Remember, all these laws and rules have always been imposed. We never had a meeting about it, even with laws that they have now that they be creating in the White House. Do they ever invite the public to make votes on those laws? No. Those laws are created by the people in the three branches of the government: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. Those laws are created by these individuals. Depending on what law it is, the judicial handles, well, they analyze the laws because that's the Supreme Court. So they analyze the laws, and then the branch of the executive, that's for the president and vice president, and then you got the legislator that is that branch composed of the House, Senate, and the House of Representatives and stuff, and they're the ones that actually create these laws. And the judicial branch is the one that says that these laws are acceptable, and if they're not, they can actually change the law or dismiss them altogether. So that's always remember that. But these are the people that have made decisions and imposed their choices and decisions upon us. They don't never invite us to vote on anything. They vote on it within their own little circle. So that's why I'm saying that they would never allow us. Well, I would say never, but that's why it would be almost nearly impossible, if not impossible, for us to have them to change and call us melanin, refer to us as melanin, because they would have to itemize or categorize what group of melanin we are, because they have scattered us all over the place and they know it. So, for their convenience, they just say African American. You know, you don't see European American, you don't see white European American, but you see black African Americans or just African Americans on applications, but you don't ever see white European American or white American. You just see white or Caucasian rather. Because before they used to just put white, remember? Now they just have Caucasian. So yeah, the forms they change. They change them to their, again, to suit their narratives. So that's why it's important for you as a melanin person to know your roots, to know your heritage, to know your lineage. Because I can guarantee you, some people, melanin people right now, have land that they don't even know that they own. They have inheritances that they don't even know that they own. And I'm not talking about just abroad in other countries, but even here in the United States. You can go to whitehouse.gov or USA.gov and you can type in lost property or unclaimed property. I think that's what it is. You put in unclaimed property, and then there's a form that you got to fill out or whatever, or you can put your name in to see you if you have any unclaimed monies or anything. And this is right on the government website, .gov, not no .com, .org, or none of that, right on the government website. And you can see if you have any unclaimed money. You can actually access that from the IRS.gov website, excuse me, as well. So, yeah, it's important that you know your lineage, okay? Don't dismiss it. Don't be dismissive of it because you're you've been programmed to accept a false identity. Don't do that. Learn who you really are, embrace it, and love every bit of it, even if nobody else wants to accept it. If anybody, even if people want to judge you for it, so be it. Because as long as you live, somebody's going to judge you about something that you're doing right. There, people judge you more for doing stuff that's right than they will for you doing stuff that's wrong. So always remember that. Love yourself, embrace all of you, find out your lineage, find out your roots, find out your true heritage, and adapt to it. Learn as much as you can about it. Start being around people of that culture so that you can really learn hands on about it, even the language, if it's of another language other than English, because English was a created language. It's not an original or real language, it was imposed upon us as well. So, like I stated, there's a lot of things that was imposed upon us um, by these races, and we don't have to just lay some things. We don't have to just lay down and take and accept. Okay, we have the right to know who we really are, who our what our roots really are, where our lineage come from, where our DNA is really rooted from, and it's okay to learn those things. All right. So I'm gone. I would ask that you guys please support my Gloves On campaign, advocating for those battling chronic illnesses and diseases. You can go to the website, um, and you can follow all the platforms right here. As you can see, it's Lupus Slayer, and you can follow Lupus Slayer on Instagram, on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Also, if you want, you can also, let me see here. You can make a donation if you like. You can sign, but more importantly, just sign the petition. There's the petition right there. You guys can sign my Gloves On campaign petition because that is so crucial for me. If you could sign a petition, as many signatures as possible that I can get would be so helpful and so beneficial. It'll be a blessing. So if you can definitely do that, I would greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate it. Um, Also, like I stated, if you want to make a donation, you can. There are thank you gifts that comes with donations of certain amounts. So if you make a donation of certain amounts, then you can receive wonderful, usable, and that's the thing, usable gifts and thank you gifts. I like to give really nice gifts. So I would gift you guys with something that is very usable and that is very um, nice that you can that you can use. And if you want to make a donation, by all means, you're welcome to make a donation. If you like, um, let me do this. I'm going to pull this up uh, at the top so you guys can see this. Let me see. Okay, it's still at the bottom, so let me do it again. I'm trying to put this at the bottom, right down at the bottom, so you guys, I mean, not at the bottom, sorry. Here we go. Okay, so if you want to make a donation, a lot of people prefer to use the Cash App because they think that they have to have a credit card to use on PayPal, but you don't. You don't need a credit card to make a donation on my website through PayPal. You just put in your card number. It'll ask you to create an account, but up on in there, there's a small link that says continue without creating an account or something like that, and then you can just click on that link and continue on with the payment. But if it's just easier and more convenient for you to use Cash App, you can just make sure that where it says notes or for on the Cash App, you put donations so that you can receive tax credit for it. Because if you don't specify donations and you try to write it up on your taxes, you could get audited and be cited with fraud. And we don't want that to happen to anybody. So with that stated, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to conclude this this evening, well, this morning or afternoon show. And I thank you guys so much for listening and for watching. And you guys have a great, great Sunday and have a prosperous week. God bless, one love, peace. And I'm out like a light if it lets me out, because normally it doesn't let me out. See, didn't I tell you I'm pressing? I'm pressing.